Americans consume about 300,000 tons a year of olive oil. We're consuming more of it, we're paying more for it. It's important to learn what we're paying for.
I think that the market is changing. Consumers are getting closer and closer to olive oil.
A good olive oil has to have a perfect balance between the spiciness and the bitterness.
Italy is very concerned with its brand. It has the most famous brand for olive oil in the world, made in Italy, Italian extra virgin olive oil.
It's the way to do it. I've definitely never had fresh olive oil until right now.
From the tree to your table, extra virgin olive oil should be simple.
I gotta tell you, it feels weird to be sipping oil. Is there like a...
Very pungent.
I should only sip a little, right?
Just a little.
Oh yeah. It goes in and then there's that
Sting
at the back, just in the way down.
Extra virgin olive oil has to be free of what we call defects. And defects are smells that shouldn't be there. It's just crushed fruit. There's also the health aspect of it, which is really the most important part. And you know, we pay more for extra virgin olive oil because we expect that it has certain tastes and certain health qualities.
From lowering your risk of heart disease to benefiting blood sugar, the health claims are undeniable. 97% of the olive oil that Americans consume is manufactured primarily in the Mediterranean, Spain, Italy, and Tunisia. But across the globe, and definitely in Italy, there have been some major challenges over the past few years. In the 2016 growing season, olive oil production in Italy alone was down almost 50%, and almost all of that had to do with the weather.
What we're seeing right now in Italy is the effect of drought. There are pests and outbreaks of bacterial infections, so the olive oil producer is on a sort of never-ending battle with climatic conditions, economic conditions, and a whole host of other things.
We wanted to see the crisis for ourselves, so in 2016, we journeyed to the countryside of Tuscany, where Serena and Giorgio Ganelli invited me to their family's property, the Santa Tea farm.
So this is the way.
Yeah.
That's the actual harvest.
Electronic rake.
Yes, so this is like a carbonium arm with a little finger that's shaking around. So in that way it doesn't hurt the tree and they put down the olives. The harvesting from here, it takes usually 10-15 hours. Then we make the full track and then before the fermentation starts and then go to the mill for the production.
So as quickly as possible,
Yeah,
and
as
then
quick as possible
Yeah.
in order to prevent and stop the fermentation.
will you show me how to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it,
Yes.
and then we start. No, you can keep doing it. No problem.
Like a rough brush, a very shaky brush. I do think that people have no idea how much effort and money it costs to create.
This can be a good example, right?
Yeah.
So it takes time. It takes time and labor cost, production cost. So of course that's why a bottle of olive oil, an authentic extra virgin olive oil, cannot be cheap.
How would it be helpful, not hurtful?
Oh, no.
Pick it up?
Yeah.
And this is the way it's been done for how long with the...
Oh, forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever for the Ganelli family began in 1585 when they purchased the property. But olive oil was being made on the land long before then.
From this stone that we found it during the construction of the building, we start from this date here, 1426.
Wow.
They were putting olives inside,
Yeah.
and they were spinning with this stone.
It's very heavy.
It's kind of heavy, like this.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And and I was just crashing the olives.
Well, this is very cool to see.
It's cool, but it's cool to see, not to use it. Because this is not the way of making high quality extra virgin. If you want to make a high quality extra virgin, you need to use technology.
And the Ganellis have the technology. Just steps away from that ancient mill is their modern facility.
So the olives go in.
It goes from here, as you can see.
Oh yeah.
Of course, they're still dirty, and we need to do other steps, but at least without wood, without leaves, without all those external materials during the production can be not good for the quality.
Right.
But despite their impressive operation, the Ganellis tell me over the past few years, 2014 and 2016 were two of their worst years ever.
In the time that you've been producing olive oil, have you seen a significant change?
Absolutely. The change, well, the weather is changing, and it's changing really fast. I just remember from 5 years to now, we had completely different situation. I remember 2014, everybody was saying it happened 1 year, can happen in the entire life, you know. And right after 2 years, we are in the same situation.
Right.
That once in a lifetime he's referring to was 2014. That was the year that a late freeze, a super hot summer, and a huge hailstorm wrecked the 2014 season for so many olive oil producers. By 2016, they thought things were looking up.
Beginning of April, it was an amazing year because the flowery was huge.
I saw that headline. Everybody expected a very good
Exactly,
year.
exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody was expecting the big year. Yeah. And then July, August turned out to be crazy.
Summer 2016 turned out to be warm and way too humid, and their production took a turn for the worse.
And then I saw 30% down, and now everyone's
Yes,
saying 50%
exactly.
down.
Then start rain every single day, hot, very humid.
Giorgio says that too much rain is a problem because the olive basically gets too much water in it instead of oil.
The olives need to be cold to dry the water inside. When we produce olives with full of water, there is not enough olive oil inside. That's the big issue.
So too much rain is bad.
Absolutely.
Look, come and see these olives. So green, but the amount of oil is just so little.
Marina Colonna makes olive oil in southern Italy. She tells us wet weather is hardly the olive's only nemesis.
The fly completely destroyed everything because I put a little worm inside the olive and then it comes out as a worm and it's a destroyer.
A tiny fruit fly has infested crops across the nation.
This is a new one I put like 5 years ago, local. So many olives completely taken by the fly. I thought, well, what's happening? I mean, it was really a shocker. I never thought it would happen.
And it turns out it's such a big deal that there are experts dedicated to olive oil's new enemy.
The greatest hope is that because this one has been a bad, you know, in the cycle up and down.
Yeah.
This been down season, that the next one is going to be an up. The olive fruit fly is a pest that is mostly driven by weather. And in general, you have natural enemies that control the population of agricultural pests. But in this case, that's not what happens because it's a very prolific animal. There isn't a natural enemy that is effective enough.
And when the weather's warmer, there's more flies, so they find it easier to reproduce. Here's what happens. They lay their eggs on the inside of the olive. Then the eggs hatch, the larvae come out and eat the olive from the inside out. The big issue, you'd have no idea because you won't see the damage on the outside, only if you were to cut into the olive.
Whatever is going to affect the fly is basically weather related.
What is the favorable weather for the fly?
When it's mild and there's also water around, so the humidity is favorable, they tend to do well.
So they like kind of a warm, humid.
Right.
And then they multiply like crazy.
They just explode because
Yeah.
there's no other factor affecting them.
Luigi was part of a study that estimates that by 2060, if you add an average of 2 degrees Celsius on the Mediterranean basin, it would actually increase olive production in France and Italy. But it would also increase the number of fly infestations.
So we established warmer temperatures mean more flies. More flies mean more damaged olives.
If you don't control the fly, it's going to be a problem regardless of the year or the season. You have to take measures to control the populations of this insect.
The soil, you've got to keep it clean from grass so that all the bugs, you can kill them. If you want to make quality, you've got to spend. If you don't want to spend, then that's it, you risk. And today, you cannot risk because climate change is so much that you have to be really careful. You have to watch your trees all the time, if you care for them. If you don't care, then anything can happen.
And anything could include what happened in the Italian region of Puglia.
Puglia was ravaged by this disease, Xylella fastidiosa, or XF.
Olive Ebola, is that what I read?
Olive Ebola, which came out of nowhere. And you don't expect something to come out of nowhere and wipe out 1 million trees and decimate the production down 70%. The trees discontinue fruit production and they're no good anymore.
We are on the border with Puglia. We are right at the end of Molise. And the problem with that bug called the Xylella is, which is a bacteria, is that story is kind of difficult to understand.
And it's difficult to understand because there are a bunch of different opinions on what exactly is happening.
The bacteria is a big issue on its own.
Yeah.
Which way would you like me to address it?
However you can address it so we can learn from you.
The way it works in Italy, if you whatever you say, they will come after you. But okay, I will try to.
Well, there is a bacteria.
There is.
Yes.
It's a multifactorial thing.
Okay.
Where weather, soil fertility, fungi play a role. The fact that you find a bacteria in the tree doesn't mean that you're going to have the symptomatic manifestation of the syndrome.
Beyond where it is.
You don't know.
You don't know.
No.
Now we're seeing it spread to Corsica and Majorca, and it has been found in other places. So, you know, it's something that the scientific community and the agricultural community is paying very close attention to. And hopefully they'll be able to prevent such a serious outbreak, but who knows?
So now you see, from the fly to the bacteria, in Italy there are a host of problems with olive oil. But what does that have to do with you?
They were saying that price shouldn't be affected too much because they'll use the bumper from the
That's
year before.
That's right. They keep it in big tanks,
Yeah.
and they release it when the market conditions are right for them to do so, so that there is a reasonable stock supply, which they will be using. So then again, you know, we're going to the store and we're buying, you know, what we think has a 2-year shelf life, but it's already been there for at least a year, if not longer.
Right.
And those carryover stocks, that's really often what we're consuming.
And there's nothing on a bottle that says that. Made, produced, bottled, and handcrafted, or whatever all the words would be. There's nothing there to tell us that necessarily.
Well, there is a harvest date,
Okay.
and if you can find that, that's the best indication for the true shelf life,
Yeah.
or the true freshness of the olive oil that
Do
you're
very
buying.
many producers put that on the bottle?
More and more.
But when we went to the grocery store, finding a harvest date was not easy.
There's absolutely no date on this. So
No date there. I don't see a date on this one.
Harvest date October, November 2015.
Okay.
In another month or two, you might have two choices on the shelf.
Sure.
You might have a 2015 harvest or a 2016 harvest.
For me, I'm still confused. It's hard to buy.
It's a good thing to look for dates on the label. That's at least giving you one leg up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is bettering your chance of actually getting a high quality extra virgin olive oil. At least make sure it's fresh. Once you do that, then you learn how to taste it and see for yourself. Now this one, I want to just warn you. This is an olive oil that we bought it on a shelf in a grocery store. It was labeled extra virgin olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
And what you have here is something very typical that most of us are eating every day.
Yeah. And not knowing that it's not extra virgin.
And not knowing. So take a smell and tell me what you think of the smell. It's the smell of rancidity.
Oh.
It's the smell of
Then that's
rancidity.
I have rancid oil, is what that means at home.
That's right. And rancidity is a very common defect. And it's oxidized. It's simply oxidized.
What I've learned already in my short time with olive oil now is that there seems to be this crazy world out there. There are many
Absolutely.
great olive oils and there are many
Absolutely.
not as great.
Well, I think this is one of the most difficult business in the food business.
Is this your favorite dish to have?
This is a really typical Tuscan.
Uh-huh.
So we have fettunta.
For me, I was lucky enough to experience the taste of real extra virgin olive oil in Italy. And after my journey, realized that no matter what challenge they're faced with, they will survive because of their passion for that age-old tradition.
If you're really in trouble, you make it. You've got this strong will and you're clever. Today, it's very difficult because everything is conspiring against you, the industry and the system. And so you got to try to keep your company, try to keep your farm, and try to keep your living nice and looking after your trees and making a good oil. And okay, if you can make it, that's you're lucky.